Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a great day, and above all else, that you're indeed looking after yourselves and one another. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the gang are back. We are going to be discussing albums that are celebrating the 50th anniversary. This is part two of this episode. Last episode, sorry, we took a look at albums that are celebrating their 60th and 50th anniversary. But before we get into the albums in question, I want to welcome back to the channel Sagosh. How's it going, Sagosh?
Good, thanks, Emmanuel.
Good, good. Glad that you're here. The one and only Jim Brecker. How's it going, Jim?
Doing fine, doing fine. Good morning, good evening.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you happen to be watching this. And Ken Cheshire, lovely hat. How's it going, Ken?
Thank you. It's going well. Glad to be here.
Glad that you're here. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have quite the list here to talk to you about. It is quite the list. First up on this list for part two, we are looking at Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, released September 5th, 1975, recorded from the 20th of February to the 14th of March of 1975. And again, I'm noticing a lot of these albums on this list were recorded in quite a short time, a few months, as opposed to a few years, as is the customary these days. The album was produced by one Martin Birch, who had worked with groups like Black Sabbath, released to Oyster Records in the UK and Polydor Records in the US and North America, with a playing time of 37 minutes and 14 seconds, nine tracks in total. And I will give my opinion at the end, as is customary with these episodes. Who shall I pick on first? Ken.
Oh, okay. Blackmore's Rainbow, September 5th, 1975. Um, I've never listened to this album. I have mentioned a few times on this channel. I'm not a heavy metal, you know, hair metal, pretty much any kind of metal fan. Um, but I I was pleasantly surprised with this album. I know reading up on it on the internet said that this is not one of the most fan favorites. Um, but I don't know, maybe why it's not is maybe why, I kind of liked it. Normally I'm not a fan of Dio's vocals when he's up in the higher register. Um, he has the range, obviously, but the higher he goes, he doesn't have quite as much warmth of tone. But that was only really a problem or issue with one of these songs, which was Men on the Silver Mountain, the opener. The rest are in the lower part of his range, and I liked his vocal work. I liked I like Blackmore's guitar work on this. It's more His guitar work is more riff oriented than just, you know, over distorted, unfathomable, guitar work. I thought it was very distinct, very clear, um, very melodic. And there again, I say riff oriented, which I prefer. Um, Uh, again, on the what struck me on the opening track, "Man on the Silver Mountain," the guitar riff, although not exact, really did remind me of "Smoke on the Water." It was that same parallel thirds, type of riff, um, which was kind of cool, I thought. I don't have a problem with any of the songs on this album. I thought, in particular, "Catch the Rainbow" gave me really strong Robin Trower feels, um, as far as the style of the song, not quite so much the guitar playing. And I'm a big Robin Trower fan, so That particularly stood out for me as a good song. Let me ask you guys, Temple of the King, is it Prague or Prague adjacent? That's what struck me on this one.
I would say
Um,
Prague-esque.
yeah, yeah. So, if you don't like rock and roll, that's just a straight old-fashioned rocker, right out of the 60s. Um, so, the rest of is fine too. Um, just reminds me in 1975, metal music is different than today's metal music.
Oh, what is considered
Um,
metal? Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, I say I was considering my expectations. I was really pleasantly surprised with this album. So, it definitely gets a thumbs up. I'm kind of curious. I'd probably visit this again just to kind of see what I missed on the first few listens.
Okay. All right. Jim,
I'm not sure where I stand on this one.
roughly
Um,
on your feet. Go ahead.
Fair enough. My expectations were low, and they met them. But they weren't like, bottom of the barrel low on
Yeah.
this one. Um,
Okay.
like Catch the Rainbow, I liked has this tasty bluesy guitar line to it that really sort of drew me in. Snake Charmer has some interesting changes in the melody that kind of grabbed my attention. Still I'm Sad, which is the last track I think, is not a bad charger of a tune. It's, it just sort of gets you in there and does the job. But and you were saying, Ken, about Dio's vocals. Yeah, they're not bad. They're one of the strongest qualities on the record for me. Um, Overall, though, what the image that I had in my mind when I was listening to this was of a this is something that happened in my real life, y'all. Uh, when I was in junior high, so we're talking sixth, seventh, eighth grade, there was a band performance within the library of our school of a bunch of our classmates. So these were other sixth, seventh, eighth graders. And the music that they played with their, couple electric guitars and a keyboard and drum and bass and whatnot reminded me of this. So what I associate with this album is, a junior high school band performance. And I'm not sure that that's entirely fair to the record, but that's kind of the mental space that it put me in. And I'm not gonna go all the way and just say it was juvenile, but it just, I don't know, it just kind of left me cold. Um, so that's my 4 cents on Richie Blackmore's Rainbow.
Okay. All right. So, Ghost, your opinion on this album?
This is not, the kind of music that's really in my zone. Although I had, my share of brief hard rock phases in the early teens and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's not music I would really listen to on a regular basis. But for what it is, it's perfectly fine. I mean, my initial impression was that it's for all practical purposes more like a Deep Purple record with Dio on vocals. So just call it another Mark, whatever it was at that point. I wasn't really keeping track.
Yeah.
Would it
But
still be
yeah,
Mark III or Mark IV?
sonically, stylistically, there is not much different from Deep Purple here. It's the same,
Yeah.
very refreshed hard rock kind of sound. A little bit of difference you might say is that you know like lyrically Deep Purple were very much the archetypal hard rock imagery, the cars and girls and what have you. I think Dio probably brings a little bit of a Led Zeppelin aesthetic there, more of fantasy and Temple of the King and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
It's a little bit of a difference. Like sonically, it's like Deep Purple, but with a little bit more mythical, magical kind of lyrics. Um, yeah, the standout tracks for me were Catch the Rainbow and Temple of the King. In fact, Temple of the King, yeah, prog-esque, you could say. I would also suggest maybe it's an early sign of what Richie Blackmore eventually ended up doing in the 90s with Blackmore's Night. There is a sense of
Got it.
neoclassical Renaissance kind of
Yeah.
feel, especially in the guitar parts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I would say that this may be where he just first got the idea and it just sat with him for a while before he went full tilt. But yeah, that is the standout track for me. It comes together, everything comes together really well over there. The rock and roll tracks I can kind of do without. They're okay.
Yeah.
There were tons of bands doing stuff like that in the 70s. Nothing exceptional, so to speak. I kind of liked the Yardbirds cover. It was interesting. The
Yes.
aesthetic was pretty good. It kind of gave me a feel of what maybe Jeff Beck would do with that solo. I mean, without
Good
the
point.
vocals, just treating it as a guitar instrumental.
Yeah.
It gave me a bit of feel. The rest of the album was, yeah, like I said, standard hard rock, good stuff, well delivered. I mean, for its time, it's probably a good enough representative of the genre. Not personally my bag, but Temple of the King is certainly even outside of my interest. That is one song I would go back to.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you. Um, well, big surprise. I have all three Richie Blackmore Rainbow albums with Ronnie James Dio on lead vocals. The the genesis of this album, for people out there who don't know, was that Richie Blackmore, well, at the time was still in Deep Purple. He was getting tired of the direction of Deep Purple, thinking that they were going into more of an R&B funk kind of mode with David Coverdale on lead vocals. So he just decided to do a solo single, which was Black Sheep of the Family. Now, the band that recorded with him for Black Sheep of the Family was a Southern U.S. rock band called Elf, fronted by Ronnie James Dio. And Elf also toured as support for Deep Purple a few times. So they recorded the single Black Sheep of the Family, which is the Quartermass cover. And Richie Blackmore liked the results so much that he decided to record more songs and started writing with Ronnie James Dio. What Richie Blackmore liked about Ronnie James Dio was that he reminded Blackmore of, in his vocal range and style, of Freddie Mercury, because Dio was a Queen fan at the time and still is, and so they just decided to start write music and start recording. And what they wanted to do, Richie Blackmore, what he wanted to do was to go for more of a neoclassic style in terms of the music that they wanted to write. And out comes Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. The reason why it was named that was because the record company thought it would be more of a sell to have Richie Blackmore X of Deep Purple, within the title.
Hmm.
This happened to be Ronnie James Dio's favorite Rainbow album because it was a really easy album to record. Enough of the history. Personally, for me, I like this album. I do like uh, Ronnie James Dio's vocals. I do think he has a powerful vocal style, a very passionate vocal style in his delivery on some of the tracks. Um, and I do like the lyrical content, the sort of uh, fantasy type of lyrics that he writes, and he does so very well. And for people watching out there, if the few of you out there who don't know, if you like this album, you should listen to Rising from Rainbow, the second album from '76. It is magnificent, but I won't get into that right now. To me, nine tracks on the album I like Man on the Silver Mountain. I like Self Portrait. Black Sheep of the Family is okay. Catch the Rainbow is good. The Temple of the King is a good track, and I do like the fact that they ended off with an instrumental of Still I'm Sad from the Yardbirds. There is a version of it with vocals, but it was never, they would sing it live with the vocals, but I don't believe that there's a studio version. I do like this album. I do like Rising better, but I do believe that this is a strong debut release for a quote unquote new band. Consequently, after the release of this album, he would fire the rest of the band members of Elf and bring in Tony Carey on keyboards and Jimmy Bain on bass, etc., and Cozy Powell on drums, and they would continue on in that incarnation for the next two albums of Rainbow. But anyway, that was. I won't even go into that part of the conversation. It's not even relevant. But I do think it's a good album. But everyone's got their taste, right? I mean, this did fit in exactly with what was going on musically. This was different from what Deep Purple were doing, and Richie Blackmore wanted to continue on in some formation or others. And he did so quite successfully.
Mhm.
So that's the first album on the list. As I go through my list here, the second album on our list, ladies and gentlemen, we have Jethro Tull. I do believe you've heard of them, with Minstrel in the Gallery. Their eighth release, released May 15th. Oh, sorry, recorded. Sorry, this is not an actual. Sorry, a little screw up here, guys. One coffee and I'm screwed up. Released also on September 5th, 1975. Recorded from May 15th to June 7th of 1975. Produced by Jethro Tull mainstay Ian Anderson with a recording time of 45 minutes and 2 seconds. So, Ken, what is your view on Minstrel in the Gallery?
Okay. First of all, this is the second album on this list that was released a day after my birthday. Okay, so my first Jethro Tull album way back in the day was uh, the very first Greatest Hits. Um, got as part of the Columbia House Record Club, 5 or 10 for a penny, which I thoroughly enjoyed, but never really delved into the complete albums. It's been a long time since I've listened to Minstrel in the Gallery. Um, One thing that I really like about it is from the very first note, it really does set the palette, the musical palette for this theme of, the minstrel in the gallery. And I think that's something Anderson was very good at doing. Um, Great storytelling, in the songs on this. I really do appreciate that, which is, I think, potentially one of the greatest things about prog. It's not just either an I love you song or don't leave me song or she left me song or whatever.
Yeah,
Um, the honestly, I kind of have to be in the mood for a lot of prog, and uh, I'm not as big a prog fan as you guys, but honestly, I prefer um, the acoustic guitar work, at least listening to it a few times this week where I'm, getting reacquainted. I was kind of more in the mood for the acoustic guitar stuff on this album than the harder sound. Days vary. Anderson's vocals is always very unique as far as compared to other singers. Definitely can pick him out. But he has a few certain vocal stylings um, in which I like, but I can't. He's so consistent with it. I can't hear it over a long period of time in one sitting. Um, but it's a really good album. I think my favorite song on the album is One White Duck. Um, Probably because if I recall correctly, it's all acoustic. But there again, it's just kind of the mood I've been in lately. But it's definitely an album that I think when I'm in a different mood, I probably would like to go back and see if it resonates with me anymore. But honestly, I just haven't delved deep into Tull's discography. Um, and like I said, it's been decades since I listened to this one, but yeah, I mean, for this style and for this artist, it's I think it's good.
Okay. Okay.
Is that
That's
saying enough
fine.
without saying anything at all?
That's just the right amount of that. Thank you very much. All right, Jim, your opinion?
I'm, kind of circling the same wheel bag that Ken is there. I think for me, the tunes that are either exclusively acoustic or the vast majority of them are acoustic are the most successful for me. So that would be like Requiem, One White Duck, as you mentioned, and Grace, that, pretty little coda that ends the album.
Yeah,
Um, I you know, my Tull experience is spotty. I mean, I like the majority of Aqualung. The more I listen to Thick as a Brick, the more I enjoy it. But there's just something about the way that Ian Anderson combines the electric with the acoustic on this album that just kind of, I just don't connect with it. I don't know if it's just too jarring or if it's just sort of okay, now we're going to get into this section, and it just feels a little forced to me on a lot of it. Baker Street Muse, which is the majority of side two, is very nice, and it is also, predominantly acoustic. I just felt like it was just lacking some kind of like, I called it connective oomph. It's like just seemed to kind of meander without hitting into a strong melody that kind of sets itself, restates, and becomes kind of the center of the tune. um and the first three tracks that kick off the album, these are the ones that kind of have these electric left turns, and I just don't connect with them. Having said that, Requiem and One White Duck are like 9 out of 10 for me. They're just absolutely stellar tunes. I want to like Jethro Tull more than I do. I mean, I get the quality of what's going on, and I'm kind of drawn to it, but I don't know, Ian and the boys. It just leaves me a little cold here there. I mean, Martin Barre, outstanding. Barrymore Barlow, outstanding. Ian Anderson, of course, but I'm I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a Tull kind of guy, but I'm going to keep trying.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to lock you in a room, and your assignment is to listen to the entire Dress Hotel catalog from start to finish 3 times, and then come back out and say what you think about it. We'll make you a fan yet.
Does the term going postal mean anything to you?
That's my mantra at times. Okay, I
Oh, that
understand.
I'm very familiar with that.
There,
Absolutely.
that's a
there
way
you
of
go.
life. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. All right.
It's a
Okay.
way of life.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. Okay.
Help me,
if
Sagosh.
Okay. All right. So go ahead. Give us your
if we do
opinion.
get into that, I think in the interest of Geneva Convention compliance, we should leave out under wraps.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, no.
Okay.
No under wraps. Okay. No under wraps. That's right. But
Thank you.
the rest of the catalog, you have to sit and listen to 3 times in its entirety. Uh,
Your mercy is very well noted, Sagosh. Thank you.
yes, Sagosh. Okay. Sagosh, your opinion on this album.
Well, I did not expect to be the biggest Tull fan in the room, but apparently I am. Uh, I am a huge Tull fan. I
So
have
far.
been since, I don't know, since I was 10 or 11 or something. There was just something so unique about them that didn't fit in because I didn't come in from the classic hard rock kind of thing. I mean, I dabbled in Zeppelin and Doors and Deep Purple and all that stuff, but I connected with Tal much more than I did any of those bands. I think they were just more interesting, more varied, more, they had a great sense of humor, which I found sorely lacking in a lot of the classic rock bands. Here, looking at you, Pink
Sure.
Floyd. So, I mean, there's that, this irreverent, tongue-in-cheek, satirical kind of feel that, and especially the way Ian delivers his vocals, I think it
Yeah.
comes across much more. I mean, there are probably other bands, especially in the prog zone, which delve into a little bit of all that. But it's just, I don't know, you know, Ian has this sense of being, you know, part jester and part, commentator, and you never know when one is sort of flowing into the other. So
Hmm.
it
Good point.
it's very, it makes it very interesting for me at least to listen to his lyrical observations delivered in his particular vocal style. Coming down to Minstrel, I think this album gets a little overlooked in the Tull discography, particularly because it seems to come right between two of the almost universally acknowledged worst Tull albums of the 70s. Personally, as a fan, I do not agree. I think those two albums too also have a lot of good points, but
And
the broad
those two albums would be,
War Child and Too Old to Rock and Roll are considered like the
okay,
dregs of 70s output, at
okay,
least,
okay,
before we
great.
get. But yeah, so I think at this time, perhaps expectations were very low of Tull, and as a result, uh, maybe they didn't really have a consistent run going to get the fans interested. Once they emerged again in 77 with Songs from the Wood and then Heavy Horses in quick succession, that probably could be considered a bit of a resurgence. But this was like sort of the quiet period between Thick as a Brick and Songs from the Wood. Like Thick as a Brick really shot them out into the stratosphere, and again, Passion Play immediately brought them crashing down. Nobody understood it. It was a bit too obscure, a bit too indulgent for a lot of people. Again, it's an album I love a lot. Yes, I can understand people's problems with the hair who lost his spectacles, but the rest of it musically is very good, and I have no complaints personally.
I
Minstrel,
agree.
I think, falls
I
same
agree with you.
zone. Uh, I mean, I can understand where Jim is coming from. That the opening acoustic parts of both Minstrel in the Gallery and Cold Wind to Valhalla so very well constructed and fit in so well with the lyrical themes that to suddenly have Martin Barre jump in there with his, I would say, his tone seems a little harsher than usual on this record. I don't know if that was intentional or just something that happened. But yeah, I can understand that being a little jarring. But to me, both acoustic and electric parts of those first two tracks work very well, and I have no complaints whatsoever. Black Satin Dancer, maybe not so much, but the first two songs definitely. I will agree though that the acoustic songs are a class apart. One White Duck is belongs up there with one of the all-time Tull classics. It's extraordinary, especially the second half of it, which is like 0 to your power of 10 is nothing at all. That's like there is a sort of almost Dylan-esque sense to that portion of it, where he's getting, Ian is getting into his very uh, protest singer kind of mode. It's
Mhm.
less complex and uh, you know tongue in cheek, and it seems very sincere and powerfully delivered, which is not something usual for Ian. He likes to keep things light, even when he's tackling very serious topics. So that was a bit of surprise. Baker Street Muse is outstanding. I mean, I just love the way it flows. It just gives you this whole cinematic overview of that section of London with all its characters and themes. I think that's classic prog at its best. And especially the last little bit where he's like shut down, the song's over, and he's like banging on the door. I can't get out.
Yeah,
typical, there's this injection of humor that
it has a bit of
uh,
comedy, a bit of levity to it.
and that sort of extends in the end with Grace, which is like a tiny little thank you note at the end of the album. And in typical Ian fashion, he can't even, like say grace in a very normal way. He comes up with something weird like, hello, breakfast, may I buy you again?
Yeah,
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good album. And it's definitely rises above its predecessor and successor, and possibly shows the way for what was to come a couple of years later with Songs from the Wood. I mean, I
Yep.
would rank this as one of the better Tull albums, not quite there with Songs from the Wood or Thick as a Brick before, but yeah, maybe fourth best 70s Tull after, say, Thick as a Brick, Aqualung, Songs from the Wood. That's probably where I'd place it.
Nice.
Shagosh, I got a
nicely put.
question for you. Do you think this is one of, if not the most British of the Tull albums?
Interesting
Fair.
question.
I mean,
I mean,
I
that would,
all of Tull British really, but this is
sure,
perhaps their more contemporary British kind of
yeah,
album. I mean,
yeah,
especially with Baker Street News, of course, Minstrel and the Gallery goes way back.
Yeah,
sure,
And
yeah,
Songs from the Wood, I would say, is the most British album because it's like
sure,
steeped in British tradition and British folk
Yep.
and that vibe. Aqualung again has a lot of vignettes of
yes,
London and
yeah,
British landscape in general. So yeah, I don't know if it's particularly more British than that. But Baker Street Muse, given that it's this long suite and it's
hmm,
so intimately tied in with Britain and what it represents, maybe it
yeah,
gives across that. But yeah, I wouldn't call. I think Tala like British by default. I mean, I would never, even in my
well, yeah,
dreams, expect them to be any other nationality. They just wear it on their sleeve.
yeah.
yeah. Well, in within music, um, being here in the United States, sometimes a lot of albums that are I think about the Kinks a lot and the Who's
Yeah.
Quadrophenia, that is so British in its culture and uh, that it doesn't connect with a lot of Americans. And I think about Tull, not so much that, but I can see how the humor might not resonate. British
Sure.
humor is very different from American humor. And I
Sure.
could see how it just doesn't click with some people in the US. But I'm always very conscious of that because
Mhm.
I really
Interesting.
like British culture and references and humor and stuff like that. Okay.
That's interesting. That's interesting that you bring that up. All right, thank you, Sagosh. My opinion of this album, I like it. I think it's a good album. I do agree that it's overlooked. I think a lot of people concentrate on Thick as a Brick and A Passion Play, even War Child to extent that this album kind of gets unfortunately kind of swept under the rug. Not totally, but it is kind of overlooked. Um, as much as Ian Anderson says that Jethro Tull are not a progressive rock band, they're progressive rock. I'm sorry, it is what it is. You cannot deny it. This album for me, there's a lot. It's a lot heavier in terms of guitar passages. Martin Barr's work on guitar in this album is just phenomenal. But you do have the going between the heavier guitar passages and the more acoustic based tracks on the album. I think it's great. I think it's a good album. I do like Baker Street Muse in terms of a long suite. I think it's fantastic. And there is a bit of levity with regards to not being able to find his way out, like he's locked in, kind of a thing in terms of that passage. I think it's great. I think it's a great album. Requiem. Beautiful strings on that. Nice acoustic guitar on it. Nice use of cello and flute on that track. One White Duck is another fantastic track. It's a good album overall. And little side note for people watching, if you want to get the reissued book edition box sets, they have come out. Please check them out. You can get them because you get additional tracks. The most of them are Stephen Wilson remixes, and you do get additional concerts. For some, in the case of songs from the Wood, you get video of these concerts. So it's quite good. So please check them out. But yeah, I think it's a good album, and I think it should be discussed more, actually. But that's just my very humble opinion.
Okay.
Well, yes,
Before we move on,
yes,
I'm looking at, we talk about this is overlooked. 1975 chart listing. It's interesting. It charted higher in the US than almost any other country
okay,
recorded.
okay,
It reached number 7 on the Billboard 200. And as far as the UK, it only charted at the highest of 20. So this very much surprises me. And also, as far as sales, it's certified gold in the US
yeah,
at 500,000, half a million copies,
yeah,
but only silver at 60,000 copies.
in the
So
UK, yeah.
in the UK. So it's curious. I mean, maybe if we were, I don't know, I discovered this years after it was released, but maybe at the time, maybe it's just that history has just not been as kind to it
It could very
as
well
it
be, but
deserves.
what I'm saying is that when you hear the name Jethro Tull and when you ask somebody what is your favorite Jethro Tull album, this album doesn't come
Yeah.
For sure.
is rarely mentioned. You usually hear Thick as a Brick or Passion Play or Aqualung, number one.
Mhm.
I've rarely heard people mention to me, oh, you need to check out Minstrel in the Gallery. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
That's
I,
also a case of, there are so many truly superlative Tal albums from this period in the 70s that you can't mention all of them, right? Like
Yeah,
you could say the same about maybe the Who by Numbers. I mean, there's Tommy,
well,
there's Quadrophenia,
that's
Who's Next.
true.
exactly it. That's
These
exactly
are the,
it, right?
True.
That's exactly
some
it.
True.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
ladies and
also
gentlemen. Sorry, go ahead.
regarding the, whether it was overlooked or not, possibly the stats you gave regarding the UK sales kind of give you a picture of that because I think, however paradoxical it may sound, it appears to be at least anecdotally Tull were pretty huge in the US throughout the 70s for whatever
Yeah.
reason. I don't get it personally because I can totally see how they would not be relatable, especially given the kind of heavy rock that was really popular in the US through most of the
Hmm.
70s, but
Hmm.
somehow appear to have bridged that gap and cemented their place as a pretty major band through most of the 70s. If you look at the responses on the Madison Square Garden concert in I think
Yeah.
78,
Yeah, that's
pretty phenomenal.
exactly it. Yeah. Yeah.
So I
But
think
Well, and those numbers,
their response in the US appears to be a little almost like we love all Tull, we don't care. That is the impression one gets because
yeah. Yeah. True.
this
True enough.
kind of unexplained chart success through most of the 70s. I think we tend to go back to their native country for a more shall we say fairer assessment of the legacy, and it's there that minstrel doesn't really seem to have caught on, and it's there that both War Child and Too Old to Rock and Roll really get panned a lot
Okay.
for whatever reason. I
Yeah.
can recognize that they're both lesser albums, but I still don't feel they are in any way. I mean, Tal didn't approach anything near bad to me till Under Wraps happened.
Okay. Well, yeah.
and
Under
those
Wraps
numbers
is,
probably aren't calculated per capita also.
yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are moving on. Released September 12th, 1975. We are going to be talking about the one, the only. Wish We Were Here from Pink Floyd, their ninth release. As I go through my notes here, this is a follow-up to their massively successful Dark Side of the Moon, recorded from the 13th of January to the 28th of July, 1975, produced by Pink Floyd, released through Harvest Records in the UK and Columbia Records, their first release for Columbia Records in the US, with a playing time of 44 minutes and 5 seconds. Now, yeah, they had a hell of a time trying to come up with a follow-up for Dark Side of the Moon. And five tracks in total. And I'll give my opinion at the end. Ken, your review on this album?
Yeah. Um, this is, I think, at this time of recording, my favorite Pink Floyd album. I know that goes against a lot of other people's opinions, but there you go. Um, uh, I love it, but it's still not perfect. There is no Floyd album that is absolutely perfect for me, and that's okay. That doesn't diminish my love for the band. One of the things I love this album so much is Richard Wright's work on this album. Um, the keyboards just really do strike me as being very, very effective. Um, it, more so than a lot of Pink Floyd material, it really does serve hard as both an orchestral level background mood setting to just wonderful flourishes and solos where they are. Um, this is definitely for me the album that if you took out the keyboards, this album wouldn't exist. You know, more than any of the other
Quite literally.
albums, and literally, yeah. Uh, I really do appreciate it. Also, if one is not real familiar with Floyd or this album, um, I recommend doing a little bit of research on what Wish You Were Here is about and some of the things that went on while they were recording this album.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
incredible. Just absolutely incredible. Um, Shine on You Crazy Diamond, parts 1 through 5, the opener. Just it's iconic in its movements. I particularly like when I'm not a big saxophone fan, and I don't like the sax on this album as much as I do on Dark Side of the Moon. However, what Gilmore does with the acoustic guitar underneath the sax solo on this is just, I think, just very incredibly creative because it just changes everything up. It's completely different than what Gilmore normally plays on Floyd albums. A lot of bendy strings and stuff like that. I never really noticed that part of it before. But I have all the reissues, the box sets with the 5.1 surround and everything. So it really
Hmm.
just stood out to me. Welcome to the Machine um, is probably my least favorite on this. I find as I get older with Pink Floyd, I find I want less sound effects and more music, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Listening to Dark Side of the Moon, it's like, okay, can we get past all the clocks ringing? Can we get on to the song, please? Um, yeah, you know, old man, old curmudgeon me. And this is the one where Welcome to the Machine, R- Waters' vocals really kind of irk me. I haven't used the word irk on this channel before, but it just doesn't it just doesn't do it. That combination, the machine
Excuse me.
sound effects.
Excuse me. Is it Waters or Gilmore on lead
It's
vocals?
Gilmore that sings lead on Welcome to the Machine.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I
Sorry.
stand
Waters is
corrected.
only lead on Shine On You Crazy Diamond in
Okay.
portions.
Well, in that case, Gilmore's vocals just really don't do it for me on this one.
Okay. Well,
Maybe it's
because
out of
I
his
thought it,
range or something.
yeah, I haven't, read liner notes or anything from this album for a long time, but I just thought so. Okay, you know, corrected. But I still don't like them. So,
it's like it doesn't matter who it is. I don't like him.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
fair.
That's fair.
I just don't care for the, sound effects and the vocals on this song. Least favorite. Um, Have a Cigar, to me, the strength of it is just that guitar part. It's very clean. It's a little bit, you know, jammy for me. I like that. Wish You Were Here is just, to me, this is the gold song on the album. I just adore that. Um, especially the way it begins with the layered guitars and different channels of the stereo and all of that. And then it closes off with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, 6 through 9 movements. I really appreciate that it has the flavor, at least thematically, with the first 5 movements at the beginning of the album, but it does something very different. So it wasn't just, okay, well, let's just take that first and just tag it on the end and listening to the same thing again. And they really varied it up quite well,
Yeah.
Yep.
as far as I'm concerned. And like a lot of discussion about this album, I am glad that they didn't do those 2 sections back to back. I think it's great as an
Which was
opener
the
and a
original
closer
idea.
to
Yeah.
bookmark it. So
Yeah.
yeah. Overall, my at this point in time, my favorite Pink Floyd album. I think it just and there again, part of that is because of the theme, what the album was about, and what was going on at the time. The stories are just absolute legend, and I for me, I feel it's very moving.
I would agree. I would agree. All right. Jim, your opinion of this album?
I almost agree with everything Ken said, except for the fact that, gosh darn it, this is a perfect album. Um, and that'll probably, make me not antithetical to how Sagosh is going to view it, but I think the term you used earlier, Sagosh, was pompous, which I get. I understand that. Um, to me, the whole run of, Dark Side, Wish You Were Here, and Animals is, pretty darn untouchable. But Wish You Were Here is the one that really stands the test of time, for me. And I think it's because in the way that they arranged all the tracks, it is sort of a complete, beginning, middle, and end. And I love albums that do that, that have this like almost book-like quality to it.
I do as
And
well. I do as well. Yeah.
Ken, I think you were spot on to point out how, you know, the parts 6 through 9 are not just a simple recapitulation of what's going on in parts 1 through 5 on Shine On. Just everything from, the guitar. The guitar figures are what really drive it. You got sort of this in the beginning of part 6, and then this kind of arpeggiated figure that goes into part 7. That or 8 that leads into the keyboard solo. Um,
Yeah,
it's just fantastic. Yeah, Richard Wright is the hero of this album just because of all the synth textures and moods that he evokes from everything. Um, I don't mind the sound effects. I think without it, Welcome to the Machine. The machine is the soundscapes and the sound effects of the whole thing, whether it's the the turging, grinding of the gears, or the party atmosphere at the end. I just think it helps create the it creates the piece of music. And I'm normally not one that kind of goes for studio trickery, but I think Floyd just sort of elevates the game, and they're able to put together a cohesive piece that comes from both what's happening melodically and harmonically, and also sonically as well, with sort of the theater of the mind stuff that they're doing with the different sound effects and whatnot. I Yeah, when we did the 31 Perfect albums, I'm pretty darn sure that I put Wish You Were Here on there, and it's for darn good reason. I think I first heard this album in 80 or 81, and I have just been a massive fan of it ever since. So yeah, this is a solid 11 out of 10 for me. Absolutely love this record.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim likes the album. Just so you know. All right. Thank you, Jim.
That's
Okay.
one for three today.
Okay. So, Ghosh, your
Mm.
opinion on this album?
Well, let me start by saying most of my opinions on Pink Floyd have to be taken with several grains of salt. I
You
mean,
mean
I
like a
accept,
truckload?
yeah, yeah, Metric yes.
Okay.
I
Fillers.
accept
Okay.
that in the rock pantheon is probably unchallengeable, but they're just a band that have never done it for me. For whatever reason, I mean, there are multiple reasons, including a very petty one that basically was Pink Floyd fans mocking me for being a Beatles fan. And I was like, screw you, I don't like Pink Floyd.
I'll show you.
I I'm that way about yeah.
It starts with pettiness, but also eventually ends up being that Pink Floyd is not really what I go for in music. That's not my zone. But having said that, I mean, it would be unfair to, you know, dismiss their music. That doesn't make any sense. This album is, I have to say at the outset that although I am familiar with the tracks and I have heard them in passing here and there, especially the title track, as a whole, I have probably listened to this album from start to finish less times than I have listened to Under Wraps. So,
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah, because it's like
Shots
every few years,
fired.
uh, you know, this part of me, Tull fan part of me that says, maybe you were too harsh on Under Wraps. You need to give it another go. Then, of course, after 45 minutes, I'm back like, no, it's still shit.
Yeah.
Oh
Fair
my
enough.
God. Okay.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Ooh,
But
wee.
I am probably familiar enough with the album to offer an opinion. Maybe not so much with the extended parts of Shine On. I mean, the part that sticks with me for Shine On is where the four-note guitar thing starts and then the song continues along with it, and that's as much
Mhm.
as I remember or remember of it.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say about the album is that, of course, it must have been a huge challenge to come up with a follow-up to Dark Side of the Moon. And I thought they did it in an interesting way, in that Dark Side of the Moon, for all its experimentation and sound effects and what have you, was, a set of fairly short, fairly succinct kind of songs that, had a message to convey and conveyed it pretty well in that little short zone. They didn't really go in for something very extended on Dark Side, which is again in dramatic contrast to the band Pink Floyd were before Dark Side. So Wish You Were Here sort of seems to blend both sides of them, and there is a bit of, to the point songwriting, on the title track. And then there is the, give us some space, give us our atom heart mother on Shine On. Well,
Yep.
not, you get the drift.
Oh, we
One thing
do.
I the album seems to be a bit schizophrenic. I mean, there is this one part which is sort of very tender and empathetic and, lovingly crafted in memory. Well, in memory is the wrong word because he was very much still alive then, but in memory of the man that Sid Barrett was
Right.
before you know, everything went
Yeah.
to pot. So that part definitely does appeal to me. I mean, it's very sensitive. It's very beautifully expressed, and Barrett's story itself is so sort of unique and so harrowing that to convert it into something that's emotionally satisfying is not easy. And I thought they did a very good job with that. The part that doesn't appeal to me so much is, Waters being Waters, just ranting on about the
Yeah, yeah,
music
yeah.
business.
Oh yeah.
And it's there's not the thing that gets to me about both those songs, Welcome to the Machine and Have a Cigar, is that they're very unappealing musically. There is not
Hmm.
much melody there. I mean, for Have a Cigar, he's got Roy
I
Harper
agree.
because apparently he can't hit these high notes. And Roy is a fantastic singer with a great
Yep.
range and a wonderful sense of melody. And he's given this song, which is like staccato, one note, subterranean, homesick blues kind of thing. I mean, there's not much happening logically there in Have a Cigar. And I think that's a
Oh,
because
okay.
in the main melody, I mean, I'm not talking about the synth riff and the guitars and all that are very nice, but melodically, like I am a person who goes for the vocal melody first, listens to
Mhm.
that above everything else, and as a vocal melody, it's like pretty flat. And for something that needs to evoke a real sort of rage against the music business, I don't feel like it comes across with the right amount of bite. But
Shots
Yeah.
hey,
fired.
Yeah.
yeah, that's just me. I mean, that's the way in general, I have, whatever little I do appreciate of Pink Floyd tends to be more of the David Gilmour side because I find his
Yep.
stuff more melodically appealing. Waters, for all his gifts as a lyricist, I don't feel that he has a particularly great sense of melody.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can't think of
Yep.
like a great melody a vocal melody that Waters has written. If I listen to most of the wall, the bits that I like are, the parts that Gilmer does. There's really nothing
Same.
melodically that grabs me about Waters does. But I mean, you have to give it to him as a lyricist. His forte is different. His approach is different,
Hmm.
and that's enough. I mean, I personally also do listen to people like Dylan, for example, who's not musically as accomplished as he would be lyrically. But what else, for whatever reason, pre-existing biases, etc., etc., doesn't work for me. So yeah, those two songs are like I get the message. I get
I
there
agree.
is the sarcasm and the sort of vitriol against what the industry makes of you. All very fair points and fairly well covered, but just not in a way that's appealing to me. But the Barrett section of it, undoubtedly fantastic, and especially
Yes.
the title track. No matter how beaten to death it is, and no matter how much I take perverse pleasure in reminding Died in the Wool Floyd fans that the guitar riff really sounds a lot like Van Morrison's Almost Independence Day. I love telling them that.
Okay.
Twist
And
the
I
knife.
remember, but I was so thrilled, like I get to shove this in Floyd fans' faces. Listen to that and tell me.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'll be honest, for a long time I didn't know it was Roy Harper singing. It sounds like he's doing an Roy Harper's doing an impression of Roger Waters.
It
You know,
does,
because
yeah.
my first copy was on cassette,
There's a
so I
story that
didn't have
goes
the
into
liner
that.
notes.
There's a story that
Yeah,
goes into
yeah.
that. Yeah, but okay. Okay.
But I
All
agree. I wish that all of the tracks were Barrett related.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I mean, the title track,
okay.
there's, like I said, sometimes it just comes together, it's succinct, it just gets its point across in a verse or two in, very shattering, emotionally uh, overpowering kind of way. And that's very
Yeah.
rare. It clearly shows that, Sid must have meant something tremendous to them for him to have evoked this kind of emotion. That this songwriting does not come, you know, every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Correct.
Thank you, Sagosh.
Here we go.
Whew, no, here we go. Okay. This will be Ken's last appearance on the Music Den, ladies and gentlemen. He's taking a
It's
sabbatical.
been fun, guys. Thank you very much.
He's taking a
Yeah.
sabbatical. He'll be gone for the next 2 years.
He'll be in the
Okay.
music outhouse.
Okay. Now, my view of this album, first of all, there's a lot of history that goes into this album, and
Yep.
it starts off with there were originally three pieces written, new pieces written as far back as 74. Raving and Drooling, You Gotta Be Crazy, Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Now, Raving and Drooling would eventually, I do believe, be changed to Sheep. You Gotta Be Crazy was changed to Dogs, which would end up on Animals. And the lead off track, Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Now, the idea of trying to follow up Dark Side of the Moon was, I would imagine, to be a daunting task. This is my second favorite album behind the wall of the Wanderers era. I do believe that as good as Dark Side of the Moon is, and before I get, you know, vitriol and, hate messages, in the comments, to me, Dark Side of the Moon is, for long story short, overplayed. I mean, it is. It's been played to death. I do believe that Wish You Were Here is a fantastic album. I do like the fact that they separated the opening suite into two sections. The original idea was to keep it as one sidelong track. I do think that the fact that they separated it into two sections for to bookend the album makes it a stronger album. In
Yep.
the end, I do believe that the tracks that are in between are not weak at all. The overall feel of the album or theme of the album is societal issues in terms of, being in the music business. Ergo, the title "Welcome to the Machine" being the music business. Give us more product, give us more commerciality, give us more money, give us what you have to sell you. We need to sell you on, to sell the public on you even more. Have a cigar again with having, you know, echoes that sentiment with regards to, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, we love you, we love the album. By the way, which one's Pink? You know what I mean? They have no idea who Pink is in terms of the overall band, right? And the idea of bringing in Roy Harper, the story of that is that Roy Harper was in the next studio recording an album. He just happened to come in because he's friends with David Gilmour, and Roger Waters couldn't do a satisfactory vocal take. So Roy Harper said, "Let me try it. Let me do it." Goes in there, nails it in 2 takes. Okay. And Roger Waters was, in essence, pissed that Roy Harper could do it and he couldn't do it. He really wished that he could have another chance at it just to nail it. But you know what? It is what it is. I do like the fact that they have another vocalist coming in because it does lend to the idea of, okay, a record company executive or a journalist saying, "We love you, we want you, this is wonderful. By the way, which one of you are Pink in the band? Who's Pink?" You know what I mean? Like it adds to that idea of the band feeling alienated and feeling sort of misunderstood by the music press and by the record company overall. It adds to that. Wish You Were Here, fantastic track overall. I love it. The acoustic guitar, I love the fact that there's the intro acoustic guitar and then there's a counter melody that comes in on another acoustic guitar. It adds balance to it. I think it's wonderful. And the fact that you ended off with, again, with the book ending of Shine On You Crazy Diamonds, you know, parts 6 to 9, I think it's amazing. I think it's fantastic. I do like Richard Wright's keyboard work on this album. I think it's very, I call it shimmering keyboards, very sparkling keyboards that he uses on this album. I think he is the glue on this album that keeps this album together in terms of his keyboard work. And the story with regards to Shine On You Crazy Diamond is dedicated to Sid Barrett. There is a story that Sid Barrett did slip into the studio as they were recording the album, uh, music for the album, and they didn't realize he was there. They didn't even recognize him. Okay, and he just quietly. There's two stories. There's one story where somebody, like one of them asked him, "What do you think of the music?" And he gave, "Well, it's your basic rock music. I'm out of here," and he left. And then there's another story where he just quietly left. He didn't say a word to anybody, and the band basically broke down and started crying when they realized who it was. It was Roger Waters who realized who it was. And a little side note, the royalties that they earned from Piper at the Gates of Dawn, they always gave Sid Barrett his checks for the royalties. They basically tried to look after him the best way they could. So, in terms of an album overall, I think it's a fantastic album. I think the fact that the songs segue into one another keeps it together. It's a cohesive piece of work. I think it works beautifully. And yeah, I don't believe that this is an album that's overlooked. Like we said with Minstrel in the Gallery, I do think it's a fantastic album. It's well produced. And but also, another little side note, Roy Harper noticed that there was a lot of tension in the studio between them during the recording, especially for Have a Cigar. So he said you could see the cracks were appearing at that point in time. So that is my take on Wish You Were Here. If I went on too long, I do apologize, ladies and gentlemen, but when I
Oh,
talk about music, I go on. So there you go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the final album on our list, Ken's favorite album overall. He has been up since 4 a.m. waiting to talk about this album. Okay. We have
ah,
Rush, Caress of Steel, released September 24th, 1975, recorded in July of 1975, relatively short time, released through Mercury Records in the US and eventually Anthem Records in Canada. I do happen to have a early pressing of Caress of Steel on vinyl on Mercury Records in Canada. So very interesting. Produced by the longtime producer Terry Brown. Ken, your view on this album?
okay. I'm just not a Rush fan. Um, and I got a fair amount of crap on social media, um, responding to someone's post and just said, all I said was, just not a fan. And all of a sudden it's like, what the hell? It reminds me of Shigosh, what you said earlier, you getting crap for being a Beatles fan and rather than so it's just like I'm going, really? I mean, here we are, we're all music fans. How about a little bit of respect? I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah.
Rush's um, musicality, particularly, um, I mean, as a trio, they're incredibly tight. They are, um, they play incredibly well individually and especially together. There's an element of their style of music. Um, I don't know. I haven't. I don't have a adequate description of it, but it's when they're all playing da-dum dum da-da-da-da-dum da-da-da-dum dum, and they're all playing the same thing at the same time. I don't know
Mhm.
what that's called. But
Is it like a staccato kind of thing, you think? Is
well,
it?
it's just like I said, it's not so much the
Very,
rhythmic aspect, but they're all playing exactly the same thing. The bass and the
very
guitar playing
regimented. Yeah,
exactly
okay.
the same notes. And it's all, and I just like, give me a song.
Okay.
um, and that's the way I feel about you know, a lot of times with artists, that's where I uh, that's what it boils down to. It's like, wow, that's really great. That's some fancy shredding, but give me a song kind of thing. Um, but here we go. Post your hate down below, but I
People
just
will be
can't get
respectful.
past the vocals. Bastille Day starts off, it's like, hey, kind of like this. And then the vocals come in, it's like for me, it's like biting into a lemon. Um,
Ooh.
it reminds me of my childhood, um, uh, listening to the Chipmunks. It sounds to me sometimes like he recorded his vocals in half speed, but then they doubled the speed on the actual recording, not just because of the pitch, but that real fast, wavy vibrato. It's just not my thing. And honestly, there are a lot of singers, and I don't know why. There's a lot of singers that sing real high up, in a real high register that it just doesn't resonate with my brain and my ears. Um, I think Robert Plant is the exception to that. But yeah, and my other primary note is most of the music is too noodly. There again, it's like,
Okay.
okay, great, tons and tons of riff, but I don't feel a melody. I don't feel a song in it. And uh, huge respect, for the musicality of these guys. I mean, it's incredible, but it's just not me, So I'm glad I listened to it. I've never listened to this album before, and I don't like to express my opinion on something I haven't listened to. So, you know,
You're doing a good
there you
job.
go. Yeah. Well, and according to what I read, this was considered their first prog album.
Yeah.
This album was considered to be, yeah, where they jumped into prog head first. Yeah.
And this and
Which, yeah.
which album was this? Was it their third?
The third
Yeah.
album, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, okay, maybe I need to listen to the ones before this that were not prog to see if the music strikes me any different. I don't know.
You see, this album, yeah, it's their third album. Their previous album, their sophomore release, Fly By Night, is where they started to go into more prog with songs like Bytor and the Snow Dog kind of thing. So with lengthier tracks. So yeah, maybe the first album, subtitled, is more of a straightforward rock blues album with John Rutsey on drums. Um, but
Right, right.
yeah, yeah,
But still Getty singing.
yes,
Yes.
So there's that.
yes.
Well, sure.
We'll
And
make
back in
we'll
the day when it was released, I bought 2112 and I listened to it a lot. And I think probably um it was very, very different from everything I was listening to back in that day. And I was playing in a band at the time.
yeah.
And so uh, I can't remember exactly. I don't know if it was because I really liked it overall or whether it's a curiosity because it was very different. I don't remember, but I do remember having the album and listening to it a lot. So, there again, maybe it's the old age curmudgeonry, kicking in
We'll make you a
over time.
fan one of these days. I promise you that. Anyway, so
Maybe if I slowed it down to half speed.
so
Yeah.
am I correct? Just before we carry on to Jim and Sagosh, am I correct in saying that you will not be participating in our Rush album ranking? Yes.
I probably really would not be around for long after that.
There you go.
It would
There
be
you go.
1 through 15. Eh. no, no,
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't see the point.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough. Moving on. Uh,
However,
yes.
I'm there for the Partridge Family album ranking.
Yeah, I'll get right on that. All right. Um, Jim, we must carry on, ladies and gentlemen. Jim, your review of this album.
I don't know where to start in talking about this record.
Beginning.
Bastille Day, sure, we'll start at the beginning. Why not? Bastille Day, great track, great tone setter for an album. Unfortunately, it's not this album. Um, it's an upbeat charger. There's some great soloing going on from Alex. That 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Guitar riff is so great. That's that riff heavy. Everyone's in unison on that you were probably talking about earlier,
Yeah,
Ken.
that's what he's talking about.
Um, and great. I get the thing about Getty's vocals. Once he gets into like, the permanent waves start of things and his voice kind of calms down a little bit, I much prefer that era of Getty Lee. But vocals aside, oh man, I think I'm going bald. What? Lakeside Park has some nice jangly guitar going on, but overall, again, it's just kind of a, you know, flaccid, he said with the letter F. Um, the
I heard you.
Necromancer, yeah, okay. The Necromancer, I mean, the beginning has this nice Bridge of Sighs-ish bluesy prog feel. Um, and then it goes through two other sections and you get to the end, and the only thing remarkable about the end chord progression of that song is that it reminds me of I Need a Lover by John Cougar. I'm pretty sure that's the same chord progression because I kept singing that melody in my head when I was hearing it. um that's all
Okay.
side one. We had to turn the record over with the 20 minutes of uninteresting of the Fountain of Lamneth. I mean, clearly, it's like night and day comparing the sidelong epics of Caress of Steel to 2112. It's like everything they did wrong with Fountain of Lamneth, they fixed with 2112. That's my opinion, but
Except the
people.
vocals.
Ken, you
Well,
wanted to say something?
fair enough. Fair enough. Ken, come off mute, Ken.
You're muted.
So, Jim, would you rename that Fountain of Lameness?
Go back on mute, Ken. Um,
Please. Okay.
That's
Okay.
the most articulate thing Ken has said all day once he's been on mute. Anyway, I'm 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 not a fair weather Rush fan. I have my era of Rush that I'm, kind of head over heels about.
Yes, you are.
This is not that era. To me, this, I think, for all the slagging that kind of gave to, some of the other albums that we talked about here today, I think overall for the year and change that I've been involved with this channel, this is the weakest album that we've ever talked about.
Shots fired and received. Go on.
I
Hmm.
mean, I would rather listen to the
Hmm.
Shags on repeat than
Boo.
listen to Caress of Steel again. That's just how I feel about it.
Ooh.
I, you
What is
know,
in my
I
coffee? I mean, my God. Okay.
I don't know. Get some Q-tips and get the stuff out of your ears. I don't know what it is, but that's what I said. That's kind of how I
Ooh.
how I feel about this. It's again, it's like night and day between Caress of Steel and 2112. It's almost like you had to go through this crucible of just what the hell is this ness to get to 2112. And the record company felt the same way because they're like, your next record better do good, boys, or you're kicking you back out in the woods in St. Catherine. So There we are. Caress of Steel. I'm not going to go into any belabored pun I can make about the title on this, but yeah, weak sauce. Big time weak sauce. I give this a hearty 3 out of 10.
And
Thank you,
change the
Jim.
spelling of steel to Steal.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim, for
Okay.
that very short and concise and eloquent
Yeah, I'm still not
appraisal
sure how he feels about it, but
of this album. We must carry on, ladies
I'm
and
so
gentlemen.
nuanced that no one can really penetrate my true feelings on this
that's
record.
right.
Oh, yes.
But
Sagosh.
Shagosh will set us straight.
Yeah, Sagosh.
Please.
Please do.
Not really. So I am more of a Rush fan than Ken is. But like Jim said, I also have my era, and that begins with Farewell to Kings and roughly ends at Grace Under Pressure with pockets of interest beyond. So yeah, I absolutely cannot stand Geddy's voice on the first few albums, including 2112. I, I am, as for all its ambition and its creativity, I just can't get into 2112, especially when he does the priest voice. That is unpalatable. It's a sonic assault. I can't take it.
The priests are supposed to be unpalatable. They're the villains. So,
Fair enough, but I don't deliver that way. I mean, there is a case for less theatrical about it.
Oh
Uh,
man.
yeah, I mean, for me, the pre 2112 Rush, for all practical purposes, does not even exist. I mean, I'm not even going. The first album is absolutely no go zone. That, that is not a place I'm in at all. Fly By Night, I'll take maybe the title track. This album again is like I can see where they're going. It's obviously it's a work in progress. It's a development. It's a pushing through of ideas and seeing what sticks. Unfortunately, nothing does. It is pretty amazing, although I mean
I
you have
need
to
a
say that
drink.
uh, backs to the wall they managed to deliver something with 2112. But for me, the really interesting rush happened after that. I mean, 2112 gave them a foot in, and then okay, they understood what works, and from there on they stuck to what works, and that did them good.
Yeah.
Until of course they got into synthesizers and lost half their fan following, which well is what you do as a prog band in the 80s. But yeah,
Okay.
I not really listen to this record. Lakeside Park is maybe the one song I would like find remotely listenable. Fountain of Lamnitz is sonically all right, but as Jim said, it doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, I can listen to it as a sonic palette. It's pleasant to me, but I mean, it's still very much like trying to reach for something that's not quite there. I mean, full credit to them that they managed to turn it around so quickly,
Yeah.
but as of here, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Sagosh.
Now, Mr. Venditti will tell us how wrong we all are.
I'm
That's
not
right.
saying a damn thing. This album for me, I did an episode on is this prog and covering this album, and I do believe that this is a prog album, heavily guitar oriented. The in terms of what they wanted to do, I mean, musically, Geddy Lee is and always will be a Chris Squire fan. Um,
Yeah.
and yet, to me, I can hear it in his bass playing. They've
I can
loved,
hear that.
yes, King Crimson, though the prog bands of the day. This was their attempt to jump into prog music full stop. There was no compromising in terms of what they wanted to do with this album. The story is that Alex Lifeson played this album for Paul Stanley at the time of Kiss because they had just toured with Kiss prior, and Paul Stanley couldn't make heads or tails of it. That, without, minus that, I do applaud them for doing what they wanted to do, to trying something that they wanted to do, and not bowing to Mercury Records, pressure of coming up with a hit single. Just to go through the singles, Bastille Day. Again, this is a guitar-laden album. It is heavy guitars all over the place, tight playing, very tight, just arrangements. Bastille Day is a fantastic track to start off with. I think I'm Going Bald is the weakest track on the album. This track is a response to to Going Blind from Kiss from Harder Than Hell on Harder Than Hell. That was the reason for the writing of this composition. Lakeside Park does for me bring up memories of my childhood, of going to the park, of going, seeing the fireworks with my family, with my friends, being held in my sister's arms on her hip, being taken to places and, gatherings and stuff like that. Uh, Obviously not being able to walk, I was carried around quite a bit, and my sister blamed me for giving her hips, you know. Love you, Carmela. Okay. But that that song really does bring back memories for me listening to it. And the the memories of those to me are quintessential Canadian, you know, just reminding me of places in Toronto and places like, things like that. The two prog-esque tracks on the album, the Necromancer and the Fountain of Lamneth. Uh, Subject matter aside, because I can't I can't make heads or tails of what the hell is going on subject wise. But the music to me is simply fantastic. It is good. It does. I mean, with pieces like Didax and Narpets, it does get a bit narcissistic in that in that sense. In that it's just it's I don't know if narcissistic is the right word, but it is sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Self-indulgent in that respect. The drumming on it is great. But in terms of that, in that one small, short track at 1 minute, but it does get a bit self-indulgent. Other than that, I think they overall it's a great album. I think they basically went for it. They did whatever the hell they wanted to do. They were not bowing to record company pressure at the time, and even when they were pressured to come up with a next hit, another hit, a hit album from Mercury Records, they basically stuck to their guns and came up with 2112. And they thought, if we're going to be kicked off the record label, we're going to do it our own bloody way. And pardon my language, fuck anything that anyone else thinks or says about it. Because this is our band and no one else has to tell us or is going to tell us what we're going to do with our music. Luckily, 2112 hit big for them and it just grew from there. I think this album was overlooked. And I don't agree with you that it should be overlooked. I think it should be, given more attention.
It
Uh,
should be underlooked.
I ignore you. I think it should be. I think it should be talked about some more. Uh, Songs like Bastille Day are still played on FM rock radio, classic rock radio here in Edmonton, K97. I've mentioned K97 before. But I think it's a good album overall. I think it's a strong album, and I think that um, it's an album that they wanted to make, and they got it out of their system.
There you
Any
go.
other comments or slights or bashes or anything of that nature of the albums we talked about? Okay,
I'm spent.
you're spent. Oh, it's hard to believe. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to
Vive
the
la différence.
yes, vive la différence. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, again, that brings us to the end of a very interesting album anniversaries. Looking at albums celebrating their 50th anniversaries released in the month of September, part two. I want to thank the gang for coming along with me on this interesting ride. Ken, Jim, the
Are
Ghost,
you sure?
thank you for you. Well, I'm being
See you in
polite,
two
my dear
months.
boy. Yeah, see you in 2 months.
Yeah.
So again, guys, thank you for coming along with me. It's been fun. It's been fun. Glitches
It's
aside,
always
it's
fun.
been fun.
It's
Um,
always fun.
so, ladies and
Yep.
gentlemen, please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content we got coming up. We've got more shows that we're working on. I'm working on a album ranking of one Duran Duran. So I'm doing that in 2 parts. So that's coming up in the weeks to come. We go all over the place musically on this channel. We don't sit back and just talk about one music genre. We go from pop to rock to John Zorn, anywhere you want to go. So please stay tuned for that because that's a fun episode to be talking about. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, please look after yourselves and one another, and we'll see you soon on the Music Den. Bye for now.